Hi, my name is Nicole Walker, and I would like to share something with you today that is very dear to my heart. I would like to talk a little bit about the effects of trauma, specifically on children, and how it affects and impacts their ability to communicate and to express their emotions. I want to start off by showing you a visual aid, and this is actually a tool that we used at a school that I worked at called Quest Academy, and that is a day treatment center for students who have high behavioral needs. This was to help them with their social emotional growth. This is a thought bubble, and we would use this as a tool to teach a child how to express those emotions and those feelings inside that might be too big for them to put into words. So I'm going to try this out with you. I'm going to show you a thought bubble, and on my thought bubble, I'm going to write a word, and I'm going to ask you to think in your own thoughts, ideas, images, and words that are triggered when you look at this word. And I want you to hold those inside, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. So I've written on my paper the word childhood, and as you think about this, I want you to try to bring back images and things that are triggered from your own childhood. Start filling up your thought bubble. I'm going to give you just a minute to think. So I wonder, as you're thinking, if any of the words like recess or school, playground, swing, sunshine, mud puddle, maybe the image of Christmas morning. I wonder if things like this have come to your mind. And often that's the case when we think about childhood. But for children who've experienced trauma, they might have a much different narrative that comes to mind. Maybe they're still thinking about recess, but maybe they had a bully who picked on them during recess. So instead of happy thoughts of swinging on a swing, they might have an image of someone punching them. Maybe someone called them stupid. Maybe someone told them they're no good. So as you think about your childhood, and as we think about children who have experienced trauma also, just keeping in mind often something simple like telling the class, we're going to talk about recess. Maybe half of the class feels good about that, but maybe there's one student who suddenly is lunging at another student, and everyone's wondering what just happened. Why did this kid just out of nowhere lunge at another kid? But that's the effect of trauma on the brain. So according to Maura McClerney, senior staff attorney, in an article titled Trauma-Informed Classrooms and Transformational Schools, between 1/2 and 2/3 of all school-age children have experienced trauma, being exposed to ACEs, also known as adverse childhood experiences. Things like parents divorcing, alcoholism and drug use happening around the child, neglect, and abuse would all be considered ACEs. In 2017, I attended a training by Michael, who's the Healthy Communities lead for Cowlitz County Health and Human Services at the time. And they had gathered research done by Kaiser on the local community. And they found in their research a lot of support that a high ACE score, or a lot of exposure to trauma in childhood, means a student's much more likely later in life to engage in risky behavior. Things like alcoholism, poor work history, unemployment, and homelessness would be linked with the high ACE score. Also, they found toxic levels of stress, also showing up in the form of cortisol, which you can measure, that can lead to heart disease later in life. This all sounds pretty bleak when we think about up to 2/3 of students experiencing this. So there are some determining factors that can reduce the risks, and I want to talk a little about those. According to Michael, community support and social and emotional support from caring individuals would be the most important factor in creating resilience in a child and reducing these risk factors later in life for them. There are some ways we can increase resilience in children. You can foster a positive self-image. If a kid feels like they can make a difference in life, then that can lead to their resilience. The ability to read your own emotions is a powerful tool in creating resilience. Safe, stable, and nurturing relationships surrounding the child or the adult who's experienced trauma. Being able to call on others for help. Being connected to caring communities. Cultural and faith traditions. And the opportunity to participate. These are all great ways of surrounding a child or an individual who's experienced trauma, creating a safe cushion or network around them, which makes them much more likely to succeed later in life and to avoid the risk factors. One powerful way you can increase someone's self-image is to use pronouns when you compliment them. Instead of saying, "You're good at helping," you could say, "You're a great helper." This is a good way to change negative cognition or negative self-image for someone. I want to talk a little bit about a personal experience I had at Quest Academy. It was one of my favorites. We did a kindness campaign in the elementary classroom. We had, as a team, really noticed that students were using a lot of bad language, and we wanted to replace that with some positive things. And the way we decided to shift the focus was to get a jar and pom-poms, and every time we caught a kid saying something kind or using uplifting words, then they got a pom-pom and they were able to put it into the jar. And when the jar was filled, we were going to throw a kindness party. And everybody was very excited about this. It was really great the day we earned the kindness party. We couldn't wait to see how kind the kids would be. We realized, though, that healing is not all sunshine and butterflies. The day of the kindness party, we had a lot of bad language and unkind words and some extreme behaviors. And we actually had to delay the kindness party, but we got to it later. Some days it didn't feel like it was enough, and some days were very hard. But I really believe that consistently showing children who've experienced trauma kindness and unconditional love, paired with structure and high expectations, there can be healing. I know this because there were 2 children in that small elementary class of 7 who were able to successfully graduate from the school and return to traditional school. Those children had gone from having extreme behaviors, being physical and violent, to having almost none. They were having these behaviors daily, and by the time they graduated, it was almost non-existent for them. I think that what this taught me was that there can be hope for children who've experienced traumatic events to heal. And they can become productive in life. Maybe one day those same kids are going to be the ones that reach out to other children or other adults that have experienced trauma and help them with their healing. I know this because I was a teenager with a high ACE score. And I was one of the lucky ones, surrounded with love and support, and very kind people who got me through. I can see now in my life how God has used those experiences for good. He's used them to grow compassion in me that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And to just get to have the incredible honor to be even just a small turning point in an individual who's experienced trauma, that is what makes it all worth it. So when you think of trauma, I just challenge you to think of the way that God can use that for something good. And if you know someone who's experienced trauma, be kind, be supportive, and just look for ways, how can you be a part of their turning point? I just want to thank you so much for listening and letting me share my heart with you. I wish you the best.